Star Wars Rebels Season 5, or Ahsoka, I should call it Ahsoka. This is a show that I think I am going to like quite a bit. And I've mentioned already, this isn't going to be some show that's going to save the overall brand of Star Wars from a lot of the weird stuff we've had. But this show, I think, has the potential in its own little bubble, in a way, to be something really fun for Star Wars Rebels fans. Star Wars Rebels is like one of the first things that Disney really released as their big thing, and this is officially a continuation of that series. And I am one of the people who did like Rebels. I liked Rebels. And Star Wars Rebels ended in a way that you could very easily tell another whole story with finding Ezra and Thrawn. That's what this story is. And I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. They're not perfect. There's some things in it I don't like. That was bound to happen, especially with just how everything is with Star Wars recently. But compared to everything recently with Star Wars, with Mandalorian and Kenobi and stuff, like, I really enjoyed these episodes. And I'm going to go through the episodes here and just kind of give you my thoughts and review of everything that kind of happened. And yeah, I think this series is very promising. Especially if you are a Star Wars Rebels fan, I think you will quite enjoy this. And yeah, I'm excited. So we started the episode out with an interesting type of thing. Now, Dave Filoni kind of did something similar with like the Clone Wars Season 7, where he did like this like different intro where it was like very monumental in a way. It was almost like a very significant thing happening. It's like a very significant story he's about to tell. And I feel like he's kind of doing that again with Ahsoka, where he did like this opening crawl thing. It's not like a Star Wars normal opening crawl of the movies. Doesn't have the blasting music and everything. But he's got this opening crawl. It's very calm and ominous. And he's got this red text flowing on the beginning of the screen. And it kind of tells you everything you might need to know going into the series. So we're kind of jumping into the story that is already taking place. You know, it's kind of like Star Wars, where like they're telling you some of the details that you need to know before it starts. And I think it works. Obviously, you need to watch Rebels to really understand who these characters are and what really happened. But you kind of get a general sense of where we are in the story when you watch this and you see this at the beginning. So it's fine. It works. And I think it's kind of a different type of thing that he's doing there. And I think it's kind of good. So we start out with this New Republic freighter that is, you know, traveling through the galaxy. It's like holding a prisoner. And it's a prisoner we have seen before. It's a character we've seen before in The Mandalorian, believe it or not. My favorite season of The Mandalorian before it kind of got boring, which is season 2 of The Mandalorian, and it's a character that Ahsoka faced. So this is all connecting with the Ahsoka series and the character of Ahsoka from, you know, The Mandalorian season 2 as well, and everything else. So they get boarded by these 2 new characters that we have seen in the trailers plenty of times. Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. I believe that's their names. Baylan Skoll is the guy on the left. And unfortunately, Ray Stevenson, the guy who plays him, has passed away. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see his character play out now, because he has passed away. It's very sad. But it's kind of cool to see. I like his character. I think he's probably one of my favorite things of the first 2 episodes. He's really interesting. And I like the villains in general for the Ahsoka series so far. I think they're really cool. So they come onto the ship. They initially kind of trick the New Republic with like a Jedi code to land. And then they basically reveals to the captain here that, yeah, we are no Jedi. And they basically go through the whole ship and slaughter everybody. I think it's kind of cool. I actually you get a really cool whole montage of him going through the hallways and stuff, and it's a really cool scene. Just some bad guy stuff, Star Wars villain stuff, just going through the hallways, slashing people up, using the Force, doing all this stuff to find Morgan Elsbeth. I think that's her name. I've heard it plenty of times now. And we get to learn some really interesting things with her, and I think it's some stuff that they maybe didn't initially plan on doing with her, but now they're doing it. Morgan Elsbeth is a Night Sister. The Night Sisters, the Witches of Dathomir. That is the storyline that they're going with for Morgan Elsbeth, so she can use the magic that we've seen in like the Clone Wars with the witches on Dathomir. she is part of that. That is her history. That is who she is. So I think that's really interesting. I'm glad that they're doing that with her, because she wasn't really that interesting. She was there. She was kind of just like a little obstacle in a way, just to kind of throw in a villain for that Ahsoka episode in Mando. But now they're really giving her something else, to do, and she's like serving Thrawn along with Baylan and Shin. They're all trying to bring Thrawn back. That's kind of the general consensus here. And I bring up the whole thing of, like, I don't know if they knew what they wanted to do with her yet because of Mando Season 2. You think she would have used her magic to fight Ahsoka, and she would have had a bigger duel with Ahsoka, and that's kind of why I think they introducing this whole thing with her being a Night Sister and the magic stuff afterwards. So this is like a new thing that they really brought in just now. I'm fine with it though, and it makes her more interesting, and I actually think she's quite an interesting character, much more than she was in Mando. So we cut to Ahsoka. And this is a scene that we've seen playing over and over in the trailers now. So the trailers basically show us a lot of just the first 2 episodes. We get a few more shots, like Thrawn obviously is in the trailer as well. He's going to be coming later. But we catch up with Ahsoka, and she, obviously with the opening crawl, they told us that she is looking for a map, because she's learned that her enemies are looking for a map, and this map is going to help them find Thrawn, which essentially can help them find Ezra too, because Ezra went off with Thrawn. It's a whole Rebels continuation. So she's in this like mysterious cave thing, whatever. She figures out the puzzle and stuff, and she finds this sphere, and it's like a star map, and it'll tell them where to go to find Thrawn, but they have to unlock it, so it's still locked. But she does find it, but then she gets ambushed by these droids. I think the droids are pretty cool. You see them quite a bit throughout the first 2 episodes. They're like the servants of Morgan Elsbeth and, Shin Hati and Baylan. So I think they're cool. I think they're really cool. They're not that strong, especially compared to Ahsoka. Ahsoka kind of beats them pretty easily, but they're kind of cool just to kind of throw some cool fights in there, I guess. But she fights them, and then they have a wild maneuver of like self-destruct. Like, self-destruct, the droids kind of stop. They're almost defeated. And they self-destruct into this massive like extermination-wide, just like obliteration of the entire landscape. Like, it's a pretty wild self-destruction maneuver there, and I think that's pretty cool. I don't know how that works necessarily. There was only like 4 or 5 droids. But yeah, they like incinerate the entire place, so it's like leveled. There's like nothing left really. It's just like a big wreck. And then we get to see who Ahsoka, she basically ran up to her ship that we're going to see her traveling around in, and she is traveling with Professor Huang. I think that's his name. He's the guy from Clone Wars. He's the droid from Clone Wars. Voiced by David Tennant. I like David Tennant. I like him in this. I think it's kind of cool. David Tennant in Star Wars, always kind of cool to see. I liked him as the 10th Doctor in Doctor Who. Still my favorite Doctor. I'm really sad to see what happened to that franchise. Anyways, cool to see David Tennant in Star Wars, even though you're not really seeing him. He's the droid, but I do like the character. He's also one of my more favorite bits of these first 2 episodes. I do like the character. And he was the lightsaber droid from the Clone Wars with the Youngling arc, where the Ahsoka was in it and Yoda, and he was there helping the younglings, build their lightsabers. And his expertise in that actually comes into play later. So I do like that. Ahsoka is called to the New Republic to basically investigate what happened, because they, these 2 went onto the ship and obliterated the entire ship. They killed everybody, so they got to figure out what's going on. She meets up with Hera. We all know Hera was also going to come into the show with Chopper, so it is literally just a big Rebels reunion. We knew this, and again, Rebels fans are going to love this, I think, at least the first 2. There's some little things that are a little off. Like, I don't think Hera is all too great. I think Sabine's a little better in this show than Hera. I'm comparing them to their animated versions because that's what we first knew them as. I think Hera's just a little off. Like, in the show, Hera works fine. She's fine in this show so far. I don't think there's any really problems with her in this story. I just don't think she is that good as the character itself. I don't think that it's necessarily all Hera like. Like, if you know the story of Star Wars Rebels, if you know the story of Hera's story with Kanan and everything, and the family dynamic of the Ghost crew, I just don't feel that same motherly type of thing that they had with Hera. She just kind of seems more basic in this, and she doesn't really sound like Hera either. But it works just enough for me to be like, okay, there's Hera. She looks green. She's a Twi'lek, and she flies around with Chopper. It works. I don't know how big of the story she'll play in this show. She is in the first 2 episodes. Again, I don't think the show I don't think it's going to be focused on Hera all that much. I think it's more Sabine, Ahsoka, and Thrawn, that type of stuff. But Hera is kind of... it's alright. It's kind of one of my issues. The adaptation from animated to live action is tricky. And it's not like my favorite in this show. But I've gotten used to Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and I think, what's her name? Natasha something as playing Sabine. I think she's okay. So we cut to Lothal, and Lothal is obviously going to be a big focal point here for at least the beginning of this, because this is where Ezra saved the day against Thrawn at the end of Rebels, and this is obviously the main planet that, you know, the Ghost crew was central focus of. And we get to see a character that I am actually very happy to see. And this is the point where you're like, this is where Star Wars Rebels fans are gonna really like, there he is. There is Ryder Azadi, played by Clancy Brown, and he is coming back. He voiced the character, and I think they modeled the character after him too, because he obviously looks like the character that he played in Rebels, at least a little bit. And it's cool to see him back. He is the governor, I believe, again, of Lothal, and Lothal is just thriving again, so that's kind of cool to see. But I do like to see Ryder. He's such a insignificant character, really. He's not really that big of a character at all. He doesn't really matter that much, I don't think. He matters to the planet of Lothal, but really he's not that big of a character. But as Rebels fans, as I continue to say, if you watched Star Wars Rebels, you're gonna really like these little things, and I do like it. I do like his character. His character's not like crazy significant, but it's kind of cool to see him. We also get to see another character that you probably just won't know at all. Jai something. I forgot his name at this point, but he is one of the kids that helped Ezra in the Imperial Training Academy thing or whatever. I think he was in season 4. He helped them out a little bit on Lothal when they went back to Lothal. But he is also there as part of the commanders or whatever on Lothal. So he is also there. So you get to see a little bit of Rebels cameos from lesser characters. They're not really probably going to mean much going into the show, but it is cool to see them. And Sabine was supposed to be at that ceremony that they were having. They were showing off the mural and stuff, talking about Ezra. So there's definitely a lot of mentions of Ezra. And we get to cut to Sabine. And now Sabine, this whole scene with Sabine is weird. Because she's, she's going by on her speeder down the big highway, on Lothal. And it's kind of weird that that's there. But it's just kind of a thing that was in Rebels, and they're doing it again. And it's fine. I think the whole scene in general is fine. It's kind of weird. She's trying to, they're trying to bring her back into into Lothal to go to this ceremony, but she doesn't want to, and they're trying to bring her in. She kind of, disobeys the Lothal patrol or something, and she just kind of zooms away over to, Ezra's apartment thing that we see in Rebels too. But the music that played when she was going by was super strange. It was like a song with weird lyrics and stuff, and it just didn't feel like Star Wars at all. Now, I think the music in this show is a lot better than a lot of the other live action shows recently for Star Wars. It's very good. I think they got Kevin Kiner, I think that's his name, from the animated shows. He does the music for the animated shows, which has lots of great music. Rebels, Clone Wars and stuff, they have great music in that, and I think he's back for this. And I don't like the music for this particular scene. I don't know what this was, really. It was strange. It took me out. But they don't really do it again, thankfully. But it was very weird. It was a very weird scene. I don't know how to feel about it. I didn't like it that much because of the music. So we cut to Ezra Sabine went back to the apartment. It's basically Ezra's apartment that he lived in Lothal with his parents, I believe, too. And this is kind of like a place that we kind of went back to every now and then in Rebels. And now Sabine's basically like living there. And she's once again watching the hologram of Ezra that he made up before he went to defeat Thrawn. He made up one for the whole crew at the end of Rebels Season 4, but it seems like we're going and, exploring that he actually made up a whole recording for Sabine. And we know at the end of Rebels Season 4, like, Ezra was going on about how he's counting on Sabine, probably to go find him and stuff because he's going to go off and he knows what he had to do. And that's basically where it's setting up that whole story of Sabine really wants to find Ezra because she feels like he's counting on her. And he kind of is, later on we're going to figure out what the whole map thing is. She's a big key into unlocking this thing. So it's kind of cool that we're bringing back this story. Again, though, you really have to know Rebels to really, I think, enjoy this story. You just do. And I think Rebels, it wasn't like Clone Wars level, like insane stuff, but I think Rebels was a really fun story. And I know a lot of people don't like Rebels, but I think Rebels told a pretty solid, good story, and I enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, continuing the story here with Ezra. And I think Ezra's actor, there's not much from him yet with this hologram, but he's fine. I can't really get much from it, but they do have an actor for Ezra, and I think we might see him in this show in the first season. I'm thinking maybe they'll do more than one season. I don't know. But we're going to see him at some point, once they find him. And we'll see how he is. So we cut back to Baylan and Shin with Morgan Elsbeth, the magistrate lady, the witch. And they basically like looking over the whole area that Ahsoka blew up because, they're wondering where the map went. Where did the map go? Because Ahsoka was looking for the map and they also want this map. And they realize Ahsoka took it, or it was vaporized. So they're hoping Ahsoka took it, and they think that they can get to Ahsoka by going to Sabine. And they know about Sabine somehow as Ahsoka's former apprentice. And that is probably my biggest issue in this first 2 episodes of Ahsoka is what they're doing with Sabine and Ahsoka. I don't like it. So Ahsoka is there to talk to Sabine because Hera suggested it that maybe Sabine could help her figure out the map, and the map that would help lead them to Thrawn and Ezra. So they're going over the whole thing, and then they bring up this whole conversation of Sabine was training with Ahsoka in the off time that we kind of, had with the end of Rebels and then that epilogue thing. Sabine was actually training with Ahsoka to be a Jedi. I don't like that at all. I don't like it at all. Sabine is a Mandalorian, and we saw in Rebels that she's a pretty good Mandalorian. She's got some skills, too, with tech and everything like that. Like, she's got her own character and style, She's got all of her colors and painting and stuff. Like, that's the character. And I think she's a good character. And I don't like that they're just throwing this in suddenly, like that she was training to become a Jedi. Like, how old is she now? Like, she's even older than like Ezra was even, it's just strange. And I know there's been characters every now and then that start their Jedi training like way later. And I mean, got Anakin training at like age 9 or whatever his age was already considered like way too old, in the Phantom Menace. That was already a whole thing. And now it's like these ages just keep going up and up and up. It's like, oh, now you're like 25 years old or whatever, and just let's start training to be a Jedi, even though you were not shown to be any Force sensitivity whatsoever. I think it's weird. I don't think she has the Force, and that is mentioned later, but it's just very strange and very out of nowhere. Because I don't mind Ahsoka suddenly having an apprentice to, train, but why is it Sabine? She's already got her entire own character and skill set. She has her character. She's a Mandalorian. She's good with a saber. I'm fine with the whole lightsaber thing because she trained with Kanan. But I don't like the fact that they're doing this whole maybe she could be a Jedi too. Like, no, I don't like it. So hopefully they kind of move away from it. But moving on to Ahsoka trying to figure out who attacked the New Republic freighter. And she had Huang, Professor Huang, whatever the droid's name is, David Tennant droid. She had him scan the lightsabers that they had, the hilts, so she could figure out maybe who it is. And he was able to figure out who one of them was, and he figured out who Baylan was. So he figured out he knew about Baylan and his lightsaber because he was obviously very skilled with the lightsabers. He did lots of lightsaber construction with the younglings. And he recognized Baylan's, but he didn't recognize the other one, which was his apprentice. So the apprentice is newer. He doesn't know who she is, but he did know about Baylan. So Ahsoka now knows that it's Baylan's skull, I believe that's his name, that is going around with his apprentice. So she kind of has an idea now of who she is facing, kind of. They don't really know much about him though, but that is something that they did. So I did like that they kind of brought this droid in. I like the droid. I like the character. And they brought his skill set in to, help out. And I like that they brought that kind of back with his whole lightsaber thing. So we have Shin Hati basically back on Lothal now because she was sent to track down Sabine Wren so she could get the map. And that is something that we'll play in later, but we do get to see a shot of her on Lothal watching over, trying to find Sabine. We get some conversations with Hera and Ahsoka, and they're talking about like Sabine and how, Ahsoka walked away from Sabine, and then Ahsoka mentions that, but I walked away from the Order and Anakin as well, because of course we have to get an Anakin mention in there. Well, we're gonna see him later. We know that already in some flashback or something. But we get some Anakin mentions, it's just Hera and Ahsoka talking about Sabine and just, this random out of nowhere, like, training that she did with Sabine. I don't like it, but again, we'll see where it goes. I don't want Sabine to just be running around using the Force or something like that at the end of the show. I really don't. But whatever. So Sabine ended up actually running away off the ship after Ahsoka kind of walked away to, talk with Hera and whatever else. And she ran away with the map because, I don't know, I guess she could maybe try to figure out for herself. She sits around for a little bit, tries to figure it out. She can't at first, but then she eventually basically figures out how the map works. I don't really know how, but she figured out how the map works. And the map, she like unlocks it like a Rubik's Cube, the sphere thing. And then she unlocks it. She sees that this leads to another galaxy. This is where things get really weird, because the whole story of, a galaxy far, far away. The entire story of Star Wars is in this one galaxy, the Star Wars galaxy, you know what I mean? Like, obviously you can do a lot in a nice, vast, wide galaxy. There's tons and millions of planets or whatever. I don't know. It's a whole galaxy, but now they're exploring going even outside of the Star Wars galaxy that we've known. And on one end, it's like really interesting because it's like, well, this is completely unknown territory. We don't know what they could pull out from there. And I think with Dave Filoni, it could be something really, really interesting. This is where they're saying Thrawn ended up, with the ships and the space whales and everything like that. I don't know how they ended up there after that battle on Lothal, but whatever. But I think another whole galaxy now is very interesting territory. And I don't know where it can go. It could end up being very weird because the whole thing about Star Wars is it is in this one galaxy. And if you go outside of it now, it's like, oh, well, why don't you just go to this other galaxy over here then too? Or it's like it's starting to really get different. And it could be a good different. Maybe they don't really touch on it that much. They don't do much with it. And they just get Thrawn back. But, exploring other galaxies now, it could be good or bad. I don't know what they're going to do with it. But after Sabine figures it out, she basically walks out of the apartment, and then she gets ambushed by the droids, Morgan Elsbeth's droids. So she gets ambushed, the map gets taken, and Sabine gets locked out of her, the room. So she can't get back to it. She can't get back to her, components or whatever inside too, even though the droid destroyed them. She takes out the droid, but then she makes it to the bottom, and she has to face Shin Hati. So obviously she was, tracking down Sabine because she wants to find Sabine, to find Ahsoka, to find the map. It's how it goes. And then they face off, and I don't have a problem with Sabine actually being good with lightsaber, because she did train with Kanan in Rebels Season 3 with the Darksaber, and I don't mind her having some skills with the lightsaber for sure. But there's one thing I don't like, and this is an issue that Star Wars has been having for a while. The only pass I guess I really give with this whole thing is how Darth Maul literally got cut in half and he survived. His story was so good in the Clone Wars, I'm willing to give it a pass, even though it still doesn't make sense. Like, he survived on the Force and his anger and his hate. At least he had the Force. You can add that story in there, that he had the Force and he survived off the Force. Whatever. I love the story of Maul in Clone Wars and even Rebels. But Star Wars lately has had this. I'm really surprised Filoni did this. It's kind of strange that he even did this. Everyone's doing this now. Everybody gets stabbed by a lightsaber. Qui-Gon Jinn is like losing his mind right now in the afterlife, because this dude got stabbed and he died. And he just died, like he should. And now everybody just gets stabbed by a lightsaber and just is okay. They're all good. They're fine. Obviously, Sabine's not going to die here. They kind of had this last shot of like how maybe she could die. She looks like she's dying, or she's not going to die. Maybe one can argue that the lightsaber wasn't really hitting a vital area, but it looks pretty significant to me. It's really ridiculous. You're literally burning a massive hole through their body. They should be dead. Just like Reva. Reva should have died. She wouldn't have just been limping through Tatooine. It's getting really old. The Grand Inquisitor getting stabbed, by Reva earlier in I hate the Kenobi show so much. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I just wish they would stop doing this stuff, because it's really, you could have done this entire scene here without doing this. You could have injured her, or maybe cut off a limb or something, and have Ahsoka come in and save the day. Ahsoka was coming to save her. Anyways. But I just don't know why you have to do these things. It makes no sense to me at all. It literally does not add anything but make everybody confused. Everybody always points out that Qui-Gon Jinn literally died by the same wound, essentially. Yeah, I don't want to hear any of the arguments like, maybe it was more central and more vital for Qui-Gon Jinn, and that's why he died. So it's like, they got to stop doing this. I hope they stop doing this. It's really, really ridiculous. I don't like it at all. But of course, she survives, and that's how episode 1 ends. So part 2, episode 2 for Ahsoka. I still liked episode 2 as well, even though I think Sabine shouldn't have gotten stabbed at all. Like, she should be dead. She should be dead. I don't think they should have just not done it at all and just had her injured and then done this same exact scene. You could have had her injured, a limb cut off, whatever, and just done a robotic, and you can have this exact same scene in the hospital here where they're talking. You could have just continued it that way. That's my big issue out of these 2 episodes for sure. That is my biggest issue out of all of it. And then it's like the Jedi Sabine stuff. You got Sabine, and Ahsoka still needs her help, obviously, and she's trying to figure out what happened. Like, she got ambushed, obviously, and she wants to find out what the droids were, how many droids there were, and what exactly happened with the map and everything like that. Obviously, the map was taken by Shin Hati and the droids, and they got away. She also does reveal that she did open the map, and that, gets Ahsoka a little worried. And they want to figure out as much as they can about the map and, what the droids know and everything like that. And what the droids may know about their location, because they need to go get the map back. We cut to a scene where this is an area that we've seen in the trailers where Ahsoka is fighting Balin later. It's basically like this big rock temple, thing like that. They basically gonna open it up and, open up this whole map of the galaxy and trying to figure out where Thrawn is. And they're going to try to it's already unlocked. So Sabine unlocked the thing, and now they can just place it on this center little thing and look at everything, very convenient. So Ahsoka does go back to Ezra's apartment, or Sabine's apartment now, whatever. And she does realize that there is still one droid left. The one droid actually locked itself inside. That's why Sabine couldn't get back inside. And it was still in there waiting. And she kind of suspected that that thing was still in there. So she destroys it pretty easily. As I said, the droids are like nothing for Ahsoka. She gets them dealt with pretty easily. She cuts the head off and she brings it back to Sabine to basically get the information out of it. So apparently this droid head, you can get its data out of it and they can figure out where Baylan and Shin and, Morgan and Elsbeth are with the map. They're trying to figure out where they are. So they do that. They get the information. We cut back to Morgan Elsbeth, the witch, that we now have this story of her being the witch. And we see her do a little bit of magic. You can see a little green flame underneath this thing as she lifts it. And she is opening it up. I see it's unlocked already, so they can just look at it now. And it opens up this entire dome of the map. And this is something we've seen in the trailers, of course. We're going to see it again because the scenes that we've seen in the trailers are actually not from this episode. So we will see that again with Baylan. I'm assuming that's episode 3 where they fight, because Ahsoka was already heading off to find them a little bit at the end of the episode. So they open it up and they get to look at the galaxy. There she is, and there it is. So there's basically like the map of how the map on the bottom there is the galaxy on the bottom is the Star Wars galaxy we've known, and then one on the top is this new galaxy that they need to get to find Thrawn. So Thrawn is like this big central focus. He is the guy. He is the guy they are trying to find right now. He is the one that's going to bring them glory. And yeah, I'm curious. It's definitely interesting, and I'm curious how they're going to do it. How are they going to get there? They do have a plan at the end of the episode, but I'm still curious to see how it gets played out, because it's pretty significant to get to another galaxy or bring someone from another whole galaxy to the Star Wars galaxy that we know. So it's interesting to see the power that they need to get to him. Ahsoka, Hera, they're trying to figure out where they are. So they're actually going back to an old place where Morgan Elsbeth, the magistrate lady, lots of different names for her, but this is like an old location where she used to operate with her stuff, and she's going there, and it's kind of like a New Republic run place, but they're initially questioning it's run by the New Republic, but there's a lot of old Imperial workers still there that are dealing with all these hyperdrives and stuff like that from old Imperial Star Destroyers that they would build and put together there, and they're taking the hyperdrives out, and there's like these super powered big hyperdrives that are being dealt with in this shipyard area. So they're hoping when they go there they can figure out maybe some information on where to find them and maybe what they're up to. We cut back to Sabine and Professor Huang droid in the hospital, and this is something that gives me a little hope for the whole Sabine Jedi thing, because I don't like the whole Sabine Jedi. I don't want her to be running around using the Force at the end of the show. So he does mention that, these two have obviously known each other now for a little bit. Obviously, in this some training history that we haven't seen between Rebels and now. And he mentions that, yeah, you're not good in the Force at all. And, they've been friends kind of, and they talk back and forth, like maybe Sabine should, start training again. Maybe this is time for you to catch back up and start your Jedi training again. So they do say that, but he also mentions, maybe in a jokingly way, but I kind of hope it means something like, you're not good in the Force. Your ability in the Force is like the most lacking I have ever seen. So what I'm hoping for here is that they continue to have Sabine maybe train a lot of cool Jedi tricks with wielding the lightsaber, but she's not really Force sensitive all that much, and she just can't wield the Force like a normal Jedi can. And I hope that's just where it lands. I think it's fine. She doesn't have to be a Jedi to be a cool warrior character. We've already seen her in Rebels, so we don't need to do that. I really hope they don't do it, because I will very much dislike that. So one of my favorite parts of this first 2 episodes is definitely the droid. I like the droid. I like David Tennant, and I think it's cool. I think it's a cool character. We cut back to Ahsoka and Hera trying to figure things out. And while they're going through the information on what they're doing with these hyperdrives, they do realize that there is something classified. And Hera can't actually get into the classified document, which she should be able to, because she is a commander for the New Republic. She has that authorization. And the droid mentions that that there was this droid that approached me And there was this droid that said it had higher elevation and clearance to get this information. And that's when everybody in the room, all the workers in the room, essentially turned on Ahsoka and Hera. They basically killed them all except the guy right there. And they took them all, to arrest them. And they figured out that there's still these Imperials out there that just... They're still kind of loyal to the Empire. So Hera and Ahsoka jump into action right away, and this is where we kind of see our Inquisitor guy for the first time. I don't know his name yet, I don't remember, but this is our Inquisitor. I'm assuming he's like a past Inquisitor that now just kind of worked for Thrawn too. And this is where Ahsoka and him fight, and we see these in the trailers as well. We get to see the whole fight in general. I think it's pretty fine. Like, he's not really like anyone particularly crazy skilled or anything. He's just another Inquisitor that she fights, and he's working for Thrawn. So we get to see some fight scenes with her and this Inquisitor, and then we get to see Hera and Chopper. This is a scene that they released early, so a lot of people have seen this scene before it even premiered the Ahsoka. And you get to see some Hera action and Chopper action in the Phantom from the Ghost. So it's like the smaller ship that attaches to the Ghost. We've seen it in Rebels too, but this is our first time really seeing Chopper in action. And I gotta say, the best adaptation, I suppose Zeb was a really good live action adaptation as well, even though I didn't really like Mando season 3. I think Zeb, with the whole CG model they did, and they brought back the original voice for Zeb, I think Zeb was a really good adaptation as well. And I do hope we see him in this, but I think Chopper is like an incredibly perfect animation to live action adaptation. Chopper is great. I think he's awesome. And we'll see what they do with him in the show, but I'm really liking Chopper. He's probably my favorite, animation to live action adaptation I've seen so far. So Chopper's awesome. Get to see the fight between Ahsoka and the Inquisitor. Get to see some cool action with the Phantom. And I'm trying to chase down this ship that's, flying away, trying to get this very, I think it was like a Superstar Destroyer hyperdrive that they're trying to get to this big, mysterious, unknown place where they're trying to bring back Thrawn. Ahsoka fights the Inquisitor for a little bit. He eventually just ends up escaping, jumps onto the ship, the ship that they're flying around with, Balin, Shin, and now this Inquisitor. So you got like a 3 Force wielder team there for Thrawn. So that's a pretty good team, I guess, for Thrawn. And then you got the Witch too. So he's got a pretty good villain team out there trying to get him back, I suppose. Hera and Chopper, they don't really do a whole lot. I guess the whole mission was really just to put a tracker on that ship that was escaping, and then they managed to get the tracker on, and that was basically it. That's all their objective was. So they get the tracker on the ship, so then they'll be able to find out where that thing is, that big device that they're trying to do. Sabine, who is finally pulling out her Mandalorian armor. I'm glad we're seeing this because I don't like the Jedi stuff, but I do like her as a Mandalorian. She should just be a Mandalorian. So we get to see her put her armor back on. We get to see the hair cutting scene. We've seen this already in the trailers too. Whatever. Her having the short hair stuff is a common thing in Rebels to begin with. So, I'm not too worked up about it. It's kind of silly. I didn't mind the long hair either because that was kind of like a thing she didn't do in Rebels. I'm not going to get worked up about hair here, but they basically cut it down to the short purple stuff that we saw at the end of Rebels. Basically just to line up that story, that epilogue scene that we saw. So she holograms to Ahsoka saying she's ready. She is ready to go find Ezra and Thrawn and everything like that. So she's ready to go fight. She's in her Mando armor, and then this is where we cut to finally seeing that Rebels epilogue scene. Sabine is going to, go up to the mural. This is the Rebels mural, and she touches the mural and points to Ezra, and that's where we saw. This is like basically a full recreation of that final scene of Star Wars Rebels. So it's really good to see that. So there was like all that stuff in between. So we get to see the in-between stuff before we got to see this scene with Sabine and Ahsoka. And the thing with the scene, though, it is changed a little bit. It is changed with Ahsoka. So it's essentially the same, but Ahsoka is looking a little different now. She doesn't actually have the big white robes. She's wearing her gray robes that she always wears, and she doesn't have her like weird staff that they gave her at the end of Rebels. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. It's essentially the scene. If you want to change it a little bit like that, just to, add to your story that you're now trying to tell, fine. I don't think they really had an idea what they were going to do at the time when they did that with Ahsoka. So the fact that they lined it up this well here, I think works. And this is now, we're building off from then on, from the end of Rebels. From this point on, it is like that epilogue scene where Sabine was talking about the end of the war. Now we're jumping to this new story to find Ezra. And I think that's kind of cool. It took 2 episodes together, though. I don't know if I like that. It was a little slow, I will say. But we did get to see the whole scene. And they are now off. At the end of the episode, though, we're not done just yet. We get to see Baylan, Shin, and the Inquisitor with the Magistrate Lady, the Witch. They're talking one final time as they're now bringing the hyperdrive to, bring Thrawn back in this big ring, this like eye of whatever that we're talking about. And they're going to use it to bring Thrawn back. I don't know what it's going to look like. It could look pretty cool. But Baylan does mention that he does know that it's Ahsoka Tano who is coming after them. He does know that she is coming, and he says he actually does make a mention like it'll be sad to kill Ahsoka because she was a Jedi and there's not many Jedi left. So he has some sort of respect for the Jedi and what the Jedi were. I mean, we'll see how much that really means to him in the end because he's obviously not really much of a Jedi now. He's serving Thrawn and running around as essentially like a Darksider. So we'll see where that goes. But the episode ends right here. They're getting ready to bring Thrawn back. So it is interesting that after only 2 episodes, I believe, of 8 episodes, we're already setting up this whole, we're going to go find Thrawn right now. So I think we could see Thrawn pretty early on. I don't know how much of him we will see. I don't know. Maybe those will get interrupted and maybe we'll, put off finding Thrawn for a little bit later. I think if I had to guess, we'll probably see Thrawn maybe the last 2 or 3 episodes, maybe for a little bit. I don't think he's going to be the central villain of this show. I think he is going to be found in this show. That's what they're setting up here because Thrawn, I think they're going to do something with Thrawn later. I know Dave Filoni has a movie that he's going to do, and maybe they'll do that movie with Mando and Ahsoka and Boba Fett. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll do that with Thrawn. You should probably bring Luke in for that too. And bring in this whole new weird Heir to the Empire story that is not really the Heir to the Empire story. It's like the new version of this stuff. So we'll see what they do with Thrawn. And I know they're bringing Lars Mikkelsen back in for the voice. I don't know how to feel about Thrawn yet because we only have that one shot of him and he looks kind of weird. It doesn't really look as I would have imagined they could have done with Thrawn. He's obviously blue. He's got the red eyes. He's going to have the voice from Rebels. He's going to sound like Thrawn that we've seen in Disney Star Wars. But will the presence feel the same that he had in at least Rebels? Because if you can match that, I think it'll be pretty good. And yeah, I think the story here is actually really interesting. And I like the setup. Mandalorian Season 3 was the last thing that we had. Especially in this Mandoverse thing. And that story was so all over the place. It just made no sense. They didn't really have much of a story. They needed to go reclaim Mandalore, and there was so much filler. I don't know how much we could have some filler in this. It went a little slow in these first 2 episodes, but I don't think we're going to have much filler. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes, maybe. But I think the story here so far is pretty solid. Whether you like the story and you think it's good or not, that's another thing. But I think they do have some sort of a story here they're trying to tell. And I think it's good. And I think it's very much centered around Rebels. And if you're a Rebels fan and you're watching this, I think you're going to like it. I liked it. I did like it. I know a lot of people don't like Rebels. And if you don't like Rebels, I don't think you're going to like this. That's just the way it is. And if how Disney Star Wars has been lately, I can understand not liking really any of this at all. You're just kind of done. And I'm basically that way too. This is kind of my last, this is like a little bubble story that I can kind of enjoy after Rebels. And that's about it. Because I don't really have much faith in Lucasfilm and Disney. I really don't. I have faith in maybe Dave Filoni. He has yet to really disappoint me majorly. So we'll see where it goes with Dave Filoni. But that's basically all I got at this point. I don't This isn't like gonna save Star Wars or anything overall, but it is an interesting story. I think they're doing something that could be fun here, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the season goes. I know there's 8 episodes. It's not like a 6-episode thing or whatever. So it's like a Mandalorian season length, and I think they can do something cool here, and maybe it'll make me a little bit more excited for a Mandoverse movie. I don't know. Mandalorian sure didn't set that up for me. Wasn't looking forward to any of it at that point, but maybe we'll do it here. But I liked the first 2 episodes. Rebels fans will really, really like it. I know a lot of people won't like it too. I have already heard a lot of people that don't like it as well. It's kind of a mixed bag. There's going to be a certain group of people who really do like this story. And there's like cheesiness and, certain ways that the story's done with like Hera, Chopper, Sabine. It's like that Rebels feeling, that kind of fun, whimsical, whatever feeling that Rebels gave you. You get a little bit of that with Hera and Chopper and stuff. If you don't like that stuff, you're not going to like this. But if you did, it'll be fine for you. I think it'll be fine for you. So I don't think Star Wars is like in a grand recovery mode here, but I do think this show is off to a solid start. And I'm looking forward to episode 3.